How's it going, Miss Noel? Hope you're having a great day. Um, for our big assignment, we had to choose somebody famous who's accomplished many things in their life. And I immediately wanted to choose a president, of course, because they're really big, influential people. No matter what they do, they're big and they run the country. So I had some trouble deciding on a president, but I finally decided on our second president, Mr. John Adams. For a few reasons. We saw a movie when I was in high school. I had a government class, and last semester on campus I had a history class. We watched a movie made by HBO a few years ago that was a mini-series about John Adams. I didn't even know he was the second president until I saw that movie. So he was really, underappreciated guy. He was under the radar. He didn't do so many big things as George Washington and Abraham Lincoln, but he was a pretty great guy. And I have a paper here. These are my dates, just so I remember them when I gave my speech. He was born in 1735 and he died in 1826. So he was around for a while, a lot longer than most people did back then. But to start off with, I don't know much about his childhood. But when he was an older guy, probably in his 40s, with three young children, he experienced the Boston Massacre. And what that was when, after America had just become a nation, Britain was still kind of in control, and they still came over, sent troops over to watch over the Americans. And it was one night in the winter, there was some troops from Britain walking around, and the Americans were taunting them and throwing things, and eventually started hurting them. And the soldiers had to defend themselves, so they shot to the crowd and killed some American citizens. And they were going to be killed. They were going to be put on trial and killed, no matter what. They had nobody to defend them, no lawyer. So who stepped up but none other than a lawyer at the time, Mr. John Adams. He stood up, he defended these troops and proved that they were innocent. They had to defend themselves in this situation, and they won. And the troops got away. They were freed and sent back to Britain. So he won. But this caught the attention of the Continental Congress. He was put on the Continental Congress to work with other men such as Thomas Jefferson and Benjamin Franklin and many others, and they worked to help get the nation to become free from Britain and become its own nation of independence, an independent nation. And through this they wrote the Declaration of Independence. And most people believe that it was written by Thomas Jefferson. When you think Declaration of Independence, you think Thomas Jefferson. Not true. It's written by a bunch of guys, and John Adams played a big part in the writing of it and helping this nation become what it was. Years later, they decided they needed a president. Somebody needs to be in control. And he chose, he actually ran against Mr. George Washington, who won the first presidency. He was his opponent, and he lost. I'm not sure how much he lost, but it couldn't have been very much when he lost by. He did lose to Mr. George Washington, and since he got the second amount of votes, he became the very first vice president. And even though he had a lot to say and a lot to help out, he actually helped found the nation's independence and help out with what the nation was today. Washington didn't want much to do with what he had to say. He wanted to do things on his own, didn't want much of his help, so I thought it wasn't too great, wasn't too fair. But Adams did help out. He was vice president in 1789. That was the first election, so I mentioned that before. That's when he was vice president. In 1797, Washington finally decided to step down. He had enough. He didn't want to run again. So now it's like, oh, we got to get a new president. What are we going to do? Well, John Adams ran, and Thomas Jefferson ran, and Adams won. He was actually kind of surprised from what the movie showed. He was pretty surprised that he won. He became the president, and he was the president from 1797 to 1801. That's 4 years, or 4 years, I believe. I may be wrong. If I'm wrong, it's going to be bad. He was president until 1801, and during this time, he was a great president. It was hard for him, which what I respected about him was he chose to continue to love his country and fight for freedom for his country, even though people didn't like him that much, just because he was number two. I mean, you had this great guy, George Washington, who was the first president. Everybody was used to him for a long time. He was a great military leader, and he decided to sit down, and suddenly his little sidekick, the vice president, shows up, becomes president, and everybody's like, we don't want this guy, we want Washington back. And they hated on him and treated him bad just because he was the new president. But he didn't care. He continued to fight and be the president and help the nation out and lead the nation as the president through all that. And he eventually did lose the next election to Thomas Jefferson, but he was a great president. And I really respect him because he didn't care about popularity. These days, people, they only care about getting votes and getting in office. They want to be the popular guy that everybody likes. They want to be the bad guy. They want to be liked and loved by the crowds. But John Adams, he didn't care. He wanted to lead his people no matter what they thought about him. They may think he's doing a bad job. We don't want him here. He's a terrible president. He continued to fight and be the president that the best guy he could be to lead the country. And that's what I chose. He died in 1826, so he's pretty old. He was a great president. I really respect him. He was El Presidente #2. I respect the guy. From what the movie showed, I thought he was a great president. If that was accurate with how it was, he was a great guy. He really did a lot for this country. And that's all I got to say. Hope you have a great day. Thank you for watching.